Have you ever asked yourself why you can follow a supposedly infallible piece of advice to the letter, and yet the results never seem to arrive? Many people have read Think and Grow Rich, convinced that they have found the formula to achieve wealth, only to end up feeling that something is missing. What if I told you that this something is found in the Bible? Yes, the oldest and most powerful book in the world holds answers that complete what Napoleon Hill only began to touch upon. This is not an attack on the book, but rather an invitation to delve deeper into what truly transforms lives. Imagine working day and night, dreaming of a better life, but carrying the heavy burden of frustration from not moving forward. Did you know that many people fall into the trap of believing that success depends solely on their own effort? Here, I will reveal how biblical principles offer a more complete and purpose-filled path. It's not just about accumulating riches, but about experiencing a holistic prosperity where faith and finances walk hand in hand. What you are about to discover will change your perspective forever. We will explore the teachings of Solomon, the biblical secrets of prosperity, and how the Christian wealth mindset goes far beyond superficial promises. But before we continue, pause whatever you are doing. This message may be the one God has prepared to transform your life. Make sure to eliminate any distractions, because at the end of this video, you will find a revelation that will surprise you. Finally, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Our goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers before December, and we need your support to impact more lives with these transformative truths. Feel free to like, comment, and share this video. Together, we can bring this message to those who need it most. There are moments in life when we follow a piece of advice, read a book, or listen to an inspiring talk, but when we try to apply what we've learned, we feel that something essential is missing. Perhaps this has happened to you. Think and Grow Rich is one of those books that promise to transform lives, but many who try to follow its teachings discover that success is not as simple as it seems. There is something deeper, something that goes beyond the power of the mind or the techniques it proposes. Imagine spending sleepless nights planning your financial future based on principles that seem infallible, only to be met with constant frustration. The problem lies not in the desire or the persistence, but in the lack of a solid foundation that can only be found in the eternal wisdom of the Bible. Biblical prosperity is different because it does not focus solely on material gains. It addresses the balance between purpose, faith, and personal fulfillment. When these pieces are missing, even the greatest effort seems futile. How many times have you asked yourself, "I'm doing everything right, so why don't I see results?" This is more common than you can imagine. It is not just about how much you want something or how hard you work, but about aligning your actions with the biblical principles of success. Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, understood this. He asked God for wisdom, and it was thanks to that request that he achieved riches and honor. What did he know that so many ignore today? The truth is that the success many seek is incomplete. People struggle to find the perfect formula, but ignore that the Bible already has all the answers they need. It is not just about seeking riches, but about living with purpose and direction. Wealth, according to the Bible, is not an end in itself, but a tool to fulfill a divine mission and find true fulfillment. Many are trapped in the idea that constantly affirming what they desire is enough to achieve it. But how many people do we know who have tried to follow this path, only to end up frustrated? The difference lies in the root. What guides your thoughts and actions? When we allow the world to dictate our priorities, we are losing the greatest wealth, the understanding of the biblical secrets of prosperity. This video is not just a comparison between Think and Grow Rich and the Bible. It is an invitation to explore what is missing, to discover what divine wisdom reveals about true success. There is something more, a richer perspective, waiting to be revealed. We live in a world where desire is presented as the force that moves everything. Think and Grow Rich tells us that the first step towards wealth is a burning desire, a longing that consumes every thought and action. But what happens when that desire lacks a transcendental direction? Solomon, the wise king, had everything the human heart could desire: wealth, power, and wisdom. Yet, he himself said, "Everything is vanity and a chasing after the wind," from Ecclesiastes 1 verse 14. The difference lies in having a greater purpose that guides those desires. It is true that a clear desire can motivate us, but what is the point of reaching a goal that does not fill the void in our soul? Many times, we find ourselves chasing material things, thinking they will give us happiness, only to discover that they are not enough. Solomon understood this. He did not ask for riches or victory over his enemies. He asked for wisdom to fulfill the purpose God had given him. That decision made the difference between having temporary success and achieving eternal prosperity. The problem with a burning desire is that without a spiritual compass, it can lead us down a path of frustration. We become obsessed with getting more, believing that this will solve our anxieties. But what good is it to gain the whole world, yet forfeit your soul, as Matthew 16 verse 26 asks? Biblical prosperity teaches us to align our desires with God's plans, trusting that He will give us what we need to fulfill our mission. Often, human desire focuses on the what and the how. We want things, goals, achievements, and we constantly think about how to reach them. But the Bible invites us to consider the why and the for whom. Solomon understood that without God, even the most ardent desire becomes a heavy burden. It is not about how much you want something, but whether what you desire has a purpose that honors God and blesses others. There is a great lesson in Solomon's example. Desires are not bad in themselves, but they must be anchored in something eternal. The Christian wealth mindset does not ignore desire but places it in the proper context. To prosper is not simply to accumulate, but to live a life that reflects the biblical principles of success. This means seeking first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, trusting that everything else will be added, as taught in Matthew 6 verse 33. In the daily struggle, it is easy to confuse our longings with our purpose. We find ourselves thinking that fulfilling a personal dream will give us the fulfillment we so deeply crave. But as Solomon learned, true success is not measured in riches, but in the ability to live with a clear purpose, guided by divine wisdom. The biblical secrets of prosperity call us to seek something greater than ourselves. When we ask ourselves if desiring something intensely is enough to achieve it, we must remember that a burning desire is only the beginning. Without purpose, it lacks direction. Wealth, according to the Bible, not only satisfies material needs but also fills the soul with meaning and peace. Perhaps the true secret of success is not in how much you desire something, but in how you allow God to transform it into an eternal purpose. It is said that our thoughts shape our reality, and there is some truth to that. Think and Grow Rich extols the power of positive thinking and auto-suggestion as tools to achieve success. However, is repeating affirmations enough to transform our lives? The Bible offers us a deeper vision. True renewal is not achieved only with positive declarations, but with a mind transformed by the Word of God. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, from Romans 12 verse 2. In the world, many people believe they can attract what they desire simply by focusing on it. But how many have experienced disappointment upon seeing that their efforts do not prosper? Solomon understood that true change begins in the heart. When he asked God for wisdom, it was not just an act of humility, but of spiritual transformation. His mind and his decisions were shaped by something superior, and that allowed him to prosper beyond what was imaginable. The Christian wealth mindset begins with recognizing that our thoughts must align with the divine will. It is not strange that we look for shortcuts, especially when we face difficulties. It is easy to believe that repeating phrases like, "I will be rich," or "I will achieve it," will change the course of our lives. But the Bible teaches us that it is not enough to want something intensely or to think about it without ceasing. We need to root our ideas in eternal principles. Solomon said, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he," from Proverbs 23 verse 7. This reminds us that our thoughts influence our actions, but also that they must be aligned with divine wisdom. Biblical prosperity does not ignore the power of thought, but places it in its correct context. It is not mechanical repetition that produces results. It is dependence on God that guides our steps. That is why Philippians 4 verse 8 urges us to think about whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. It is an invitation to elevate our minds above the earthly and focus them on what truly edifies. Imagine Solomon facing the responsibility of leading a nation. He could have relied on his own abilities or on human strategies, but he chose another path. He asked God for wisdom to discern. That decision changed his destiny and that of his people. His story shows us that beyond positive thoughts, we need divine guidance to make wise decisions and achieve lasting success. This is one of the financial principles of Solomon that we can still apply today. The challenge is not in thinking positively, but in thinking correctly. When we allow the Bible to be the filter for our ideas, our goals and dreams align with God's purpose. This not only transforms our way of seeing success, but also how we seek it. Faith and finances are not separate. They are intrinsically connected when we follow the biblical principles of success. Ultimately, the power of thought lies in its ability to lead us towards the truth. That truth, as John 8 verse 32 says, will set us free. But it is not just any truth. It is the truth of God that gives us clarity, purpose, and direction. Perhaps what we need is not to repeat affirmations, but to immerse ourselves in the biblical secrets of prosperity and allow them to be the ones that transform our minds and, finally, our lives. In a world obsessed with the material, it is easy to confuse prosperity with the accumulation of riches. Think and Grow Rich focuses on the idea of achieving financial success, but is that all there is to life? The Bible offers us a broader perspective. Prosperity is not limited to tangible goods, but encompasses peace, purpose, and an eternal connection with God. Solomon, who possessed unimaginable riches, came to say, "Vanity of vanities. All is vanity," from Ecclesiastes 1 verse 2. Why did such a successful man feel empty? The truth is that many people, even those who have achieved financial success, feel that something is missing. Wealth, according to the Bible, is not an end in itself. It is a means to fulfill a divine purpose and to bless others. Solomon understood that without communion with God, even the greatest fortune lacks meaning. In his own words, "Whoever loves money never has enough," from Ecclesiastes 5 verse 10. How many times have we seen rich people desperately searching for something that money cannot buy? Complete abundance includes more than just material goods. It is the tranquility of knowing that we are walking in God's purpose, that our finances are aligned with His will, and that our decisions reflect His wisdom. The biblical principles of success do not call us to reject prosperity, but to see it as a tool and not as an idol. Solomon recognized that true wealth is living a life with meaning, guided by God. Material prosperity without a spiritual relationship is like a well without water. How many times do people pursue financial goals, believing that by achieving them they will be happy? However, they realize that the void is still there. The Christian wealth mindset teaches us that money cannot fill the spaces that only God can occupy. That is why Jesus said, "But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well," from Matthew 6 verse 33. This is the secret to experiencing holistic prosperity, to seek God first. Solomon was a witness to how riches without purpose can become a burden. Although he had gold, palaces, and power, he also had moments of deep dissatisfaction. His reflection in Ecclesiastes is not just a lament, but a warning for those who believe that material prosperity is the answer to all problems. He understood that true abundance begins when we live in communion with God and use what we have for His glory. This does not mean that money is bad. In fact, the Bible recognizes its importance for fulfilling responsibilities and helping others. But when money becomes the center of our lives, we lose the divine perspective. The biblical secrets of prosperity call us to a balance, to recognize that material abundance is a blessing but not our source of security or identity. Only in God do we find a wealth that transcends the earthly. Holistic prosperity is not a utopia. It is a promise from God for those who seek His will. It invites us to change our focus from accumulating to sharing, from controlling to trusting. Perhaps true success is not in how much we possess, but in how we use it to honor God and bless others. And that is a truth that neither gold nor silver can buy. In a world that applauds accumulation, generosity is often relegated to oblivion. Think and Grow Rich speaks extensively about how to obtain riches but remains silent on the transformative power of giving. However, the Bible teaches that prosperity is not measured only by what we possess, but by what we share. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed, from Proverbs 11 verse 25. In this principle lies a powerful secret. What we give is not lost, but is multiplied. Imagine a river that flows constantly. If the water stagnates, it loses life. The same happens with our riches. God does not bless us so that we accumulate, but so that we become channels of blessing. Solomon understood this when he wrote, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops, and your barns will be filled with plenty," from Proverbs 3 verses 9 to 10. It is a reminder that generosity opens doors to a greater prosperity, one that transcends the material. But why is it so hard to give? Anxiety, fear of the future, and a scarcity mindset prevent us from letting go of what we have. However, faith invites us to trust that God is our source, not our possessions. When we give with a willing heart, we recognize that everything we have comes from Him and that we will never lack. This is one of the financial principles of Solomon that remains relevant. Giving is not losing. It is sowing in fertile ground. Many times, we think that being generous is something only the rich can do. But the Bible shows us the opposite. Jesus celebrated the widow who gave 2 small coins because her generosity did not depend on the amount but on her disposition, as told in Mark 12 verses 41 to 44. Generosity has to do not with what we give, but with what we hold back. It is an act of faith, a testimony that we trust in God more than in our resources. The Christian wealth mindset calls us to break with the logic of the world and embrace the principle of giving. When we share what we have, we experience a prosperity that is not limited to the financial. Peace, joy, and a deeper connection with God and with others. It is a reminder that our riches do not belong to us, but that we are stewards of them to fulfill greater purposes. In the biblical secrets of prosperity, generosity occupies a central place. It is not just a command. It is an invitation to experience how God multiplies what we offer with a sincere heart. Solomon, despite his great wealth, understood that giving to God was a priority. That is why his barns were full and his blessings overflowed. This principle is as relevant today as it was in his time. Perhaps what we most need is not to accumulate more, but to learn to let go. Generosity frees us from attachment and connects us with something greater than ourselves. It reminds us that biblical prosperity is not a destination, but a path in which what we give returns to us in ways we cannot even imagine. Perhaps in giving, we discover the true meaning of being blessed. Persistence is a virtue that the world applauds. We are told that we should never give up, that success is for those who pursue it relentlessly. Think and Grow Rich emphasizes the importance of persevering, but it often forgets something crucial. Without God's favor, our efforts can be like building castles in the sand. Solomon expressed it poignantly, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain," from Psalm 127 verse 1. There are those who work tirelessly but feel that their efforts do not bear fruit. Perhaps you have also felt that way, as if you were trapped in a cycle of failed attempts. The Bible does not deny the importance of diligence, but it reminds us that our actions need to be guided by divine wisdom. Solomon knew that human persistence without God's blessing is like rowing against the current, exhausting and without direction. Human effort has limits. No matter how much we strive, there are things that are beyond our control. It is in those moments when we must remember that divine favor does not depend on what we do, but on our willingness to trust in God. Biblical prosperity not only values persistence, but combines it with a total dependence on the Lord. It is a balance between working diligently and resting in His grace. Solomon gives us an important key in Proverbs 16 verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. This does not mean we should sit back and wait for everything to happen magically. Rather, it invites us to take action with the confidence that God will guide our steps and bless our decisions. It is the combination of effort and faith that produces lasting success. When persistence is not accompanied by God's favor, it can become a heavy burden. But when we work under His direction, even the most difficult tasks become light. Jesus Himself said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," from Matthew 11 verse 30. This is a reminder that we are not alone in our struggle. God walks with us, giving us strength to persevere and wisdom to advance. The secret is not just in how much we work, but in how and for whom we work. The Christian wealth mindset calls us to be persistent, but also to be obedient. Solomon, with all his wisdom, understood that success was not the fruit of his effort alone, but of his relationship with God. That is the difference between a life of constant effort and a life of favor and purpose. Perhaps the key to overcoming your challenges is not simply to persist, but to change your focus. What would happen if you committed your plans to the Lord? When our persistence is aligned with His will, we experience a kind of success that not only changes our lives, but also the lives of those around us. Divine favor is not a shortcut. It is the force that transforms our efforts into eternal results. When we hear the word faith, we often think of something spiritual and disconnected from our finances. However, the Bible teaches us that faith not only transforms our souls, but also our way of seeing and managing prosperity. Think and Grow Rich mentions faith as a psychological component to achieve success, but the biblical perspective goes much further. True faith is not just believing that something can happen, it is trusting in God as the source of all wealth and purpose. Imagine the life of Abraham, who left everything he knew to follow a divine promise. He did not know exactly how or when, but he trusted that God would fulfill his word. That faith led him to become the father of a great nation and an example of obedience. Similarly, Solomon asked God for wisdom, not riches. His trust that God would provide what was necessary resulted in an abundance beyond the material. This is the difference between depending on our own abilities and depending on the Lord. Biblical prosperity begins with faith, but not as a tool to manipulate results, but as a connection with God's will. Wealth, according to the Bible, is not an isolated goal. It is part of a greater purpose that includes blessing others and glorifying the Lord. In Hebrews 11 verse 6, we are reminded, "And without faith it is impossible to please God." This challenges us to rethink how we see our finances, not as something independent, but as an extension of our relationship with Him. It is common that when faced with financial challenges, we feel anxiety and insecurity. But faith invites us to rest in divine provision. Jesus himself taught us to pray, saying, "Give us today our daily bread," from Matthew 6 verse 11. This simple phrase encapsulates the trust that God takes care of our daily needs. It is not about denying human effort, but about recognizing that our work is fruitful when we trust in His guidance. Faith and finances are intrinsically connected. When we trust in our own strength, we can fall into the trap of greed or fear. But when our faith is anchored in God, our financial decisions reflect His wisdom and purpose. Solomon summarized it perfectly in Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." The book, Think and Grow Rich, focuses on the power of believing in oneself, but the Bible calls us to something much more profound, to believe in the one who has control of everything. This perspective not only transforms how we see money, but also how we use it. The Christian wealth mindset is not about how much we possess, but about how much we trust that God will provide what is necessary to fulfill His purpose in our lives. Perhaps the greatest wealth we can achieve is not in what we accumulate, but in the peace that comes from knowing that God is in charge. That trust frees us from stress and anxiety, allowing us to make wise and generous financial decisions. Faith connects us with a prosperity that not only satisfies our needs, but also prepares us to impact others in eternal ways. In a world where information abounds, many people confuse knowledge with wisdom. But wisdom is more than accumulating data or strategies. It is the ability to make correct decisions guided by eternal principles. The Bible teaches us that wisdom is the foundation of all true prosperity. Solomon, the wisest man in history, understood this when he asked God not for riches or power, but for wisdom to govern. As a result, he received much more than he imagined. "I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor," from 1 Kings 3 verses 12 to 13. Biblical prosperity does not begin with the desire to have more, but with the search for divine wisdom. Solomon knew that without it, even the greatest riches could become a burden. In Proverbs 4 verse 7, he declared, "The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding." This principle is still valid today. Wisdom not only teaches us how to manage our finances, but also how to live with purpose and direction. How many times have we made impulsive decisions and later regretted the consequences? A lack of wisdom can cost us much more than money. It can rob us of peace, relationships, and opportunities. Solomon reflected deeply on this in Ecclesiastes, where he recognized that riches without wisdom do not satisfy the soul. The Christian wealth mindset begins with the recognition that our decisions must be aligned with God's will. Only then will we experience a prosperity that transcends the material. The Bible calls us to seek wisdom as if it were a treasure, because she is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. From Proverbs 8 verse 11. This is a challenge to rethink our priorities. Instead of pursuing ephemeral goals, what if we made wisdom our greatest objective? Solomon did, and his legacy still inspires millions. Wisdom also protects us from financial mistakes. It teaches us to plan with diligence, to invest with purpose, and to avoid the traps of greed and indebtedness. But more importantly, it guides us to live a life that glorifies God. Wealth, according to the Bible, is not an end in itself, but a tool to fulfill His purpose. Solomon, with all his greatness, recognized that true wealth is not in earthly treasures, but in a relationship with the Lord. It is easy to be carried away by the quick promises of success, but the Bible invites us to build our lives on a solid foundation. Jesus compared the wise man to one who builds his house on the rock, while the foolish man builds it on the sand, as told in Matthew 7 verses 24 to 27. Where are we building our prosperity? Wisdom gives us the necessary perspective to build with intention and to ensure that what we build has eternal value. Perhaps the greatest gift we can ask for is not more money, but more wisdom. A wise mind leads to wise decisions, and these, in turn, lead us to a holistic prosperity. Solomon is a living example of how seeking wisdom first opens the doors to blessings that go beyond our expectations. Perhaps it is time to make this principle the foundation of our own lives. What we have shared today are not just ideas or principles. It is an invitation to change your perspective and to apply this knowledge in your life. Solomon, with all his wealth and wisdom, left us a crucial lesson. Without purpose and without God, even the greatest riches are like chasing after the wind. Now, it is your turn. Reflect. Are you building your prosperity on solid foundations or on sand that crumbles at the slightest problem? Perhaps until now you have striven on your own, struggling with financial anxieties and difficult decisions. The Bible calls us to trust in God and to apply His wisdom in every area of our lives, including our finances. If you are facing debt, uncertainty, or simply the feeling that something is missing, remember that you are not alone. God has given you practical and spiritual tools to overcome those challenges. One of them is generosity, because what you give not only blesses others, but opens doors of blessing for you. Do not stop here. I invite you to watch our video, "You Are Not a Showcase: The Secret in the Bible That Can Completely Change Your Life," where you will discover how these principles apply to other essential aspects of your life. This knowledge can be the bridge to the transformation you so deeply desire. Finally, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Do not forget to activate the notifications so you can continue learning how faith and finances can change your life. May God bless you in all areas of your life and guide you towards a prosperity that transcends the material.